Hello everyone and welcome to the Good Old Gamer. So last week we finished up our CPU testing with all of the current CPUs that are out there to figure out which ones offer the best value for the money. If you haven't checked out that video, I will leave a link down below so this way you guys get the information to see which CPU is the fastest for gaming here today for the money. So alright, with that out of the way, what comes next is now the question. Obviously, we have some new processors coming out here in the not too distant future. AM5 apparently is coming out on September 15th with the Zen 4 CPUs. I'm very much looking forward to Zen 4 after testing out the X3D. It was a bit wishy-washy in my opinion, and I'm really excited to see what AMD can do with the new platform, with the new RAM, with AVX 512, and see if it can bring up the performance in something like RPCS 3, and maybe even offer superior performance. So I'm very excited for that. So here today, we're going to talk about what we're going to be doing moving forward. I want to get your feedback on a few of the ideas that I've been having. I want to bounce a few things off of you guys. And yeah, this is basically going to be kind of like a wrap up and to get your feedback on what to do moving forward. So before we get into it, today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. Invest in yourself and your personal growth. Benefits of Skillshare are it's an ad-free platform so you can stay in your zone while exploring your new skills. New and premium classes are launched each and every week, so there's always something new to discover. And the entire catalog is now available with subtitles in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. I've worked with and used Skillshare for quite some time now. As you guys may have noticed, my B-roll in my videos is substantially better than what it used to be. And much of that has to do with taking the classes on Skillshare in photography and videography, such as Cinematography Basics, Understanding Filmmaking Style by Zach Mulligan. So if you're interested in upping your game or learning something new, I have a special offer for you. The first 1,000 people to use the link in the video description will get 1 month free trial of Skillshare. So don't wait and go ahead and take advantage of this limited time offer here today. All right, so before we get to the parts where I kind of bounce some ideas off of you, I'm going to let you guys know a few of the things that I've already started. So the first thing is I went ahead and picked up a few parts, and I want to go over that with you guys to get ready for DDR5 testing. So obviously Alder Lake already supports DDR5, I just don't have a board for it. So I just picked up one of these guys, it's on its way, the ASRock Z690M PG Riptide DDR5. And this is a very reasonably priced Z690 board at $159. So I was like, all right, and I like the M-ATX form factor over ATX, and I'll go over that here with you guys here in a little bit. So I was like, this is a very good board for the money. Looks like the VRM should be good enough. We're basically just going to be focusing on the 12600K, as obviously we found out that's the best performance per dollar CPU from the Alder Lake K SKUs. And this will cut the mustard as a test board. So I went ahead and picked one of these up. And I also reached out to Kingston, which are great supporters of the channel. They like the testing that I do here, and they're like, yeah, okay, you guys, you can get what you need. So I asked them for the best memory that they have right now, which is the Kingston Fury Renegade 32 gig kit, 6400 CL32. This is basically the best DDR5 that's on the market right now. There is 6600 C32, which is slightly better, but I was like, all right, this will cut the mustard for the super high end for you guys that are like, I want the best of the best when it comes to DDR5, so we can test that out. But I also asked them for a 16 gigabyte kit, a 2x8 kit of their 6000 C40, and I did that because this is much less expensive, coming in at $163. So this would be like more budget friendly DDR5, and at 6000 C40, I mean, that's better than a lot of other kits that are coming in at like 5200 C40 or 4800 C40, and they're usually just a little bit less than this. So I asked for this kit, and this would be kind of the budget test kit that I'll be using, because this will very quickly become the, I guess you could say, entry-level memory, in my opinion. Now, I did request a PCIe Gen 5 NVMe, but they don't have them yet. They haven't announced those, so that'll come later. So we can do some testing there. However, this is the part where I want to get your guys' feedback when it comes to AM4. So apparently, they're only going to be launching the X670 motherboards on September 15th. Now, I'm looking to build the most budget-friendly or bang-for-buck system, and X670 probably is not going to be that. More than likely, people are going to be recommending the B650s. All these numbers, B660, B650, gets me confused. So my thought process is, should I wait for that, or would you guys rather I just go ahead and pick up an X670? Now, it will come down to pricing. I will not spend more than $200 on a motherboard, no matter what. So I don't care if they're X670Es and they got all sorts of stuff. There's no way I'm going to spend more than $199. Now, realistically, I want to spend $150 or less because that would be more comparable to what's out there from the Intel side of things. Because you can get the Z690s, as I just showed you, for about $150. There are cheaper boards out there. And I think that's about where the B650s will land, $130 to $150. And that's probably going to be what most of you guys want. So I want to get your feedback on that. Should I wait for those, which the old rumor was those should be in October, maybe November. It should be before the end of the year. Or would you rather I just go ahead and pick up the AM4 or the AM5 and Zen 4 chips as fast as possible to get you guys the information so you know what makes the most sense? I need to know from you guys which way you'd rather I go on that one. Like I said, assuming there are boards under $200, I'll swing it. I'll spend the extra money. But in reality, we all know that everybody's going to recommend the B series boards, as that's always been the case. So want to get your thoughts on that one. And then in terms of CPU, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to go with the 7600X, the 6 cores. They tend to be the best value, usually within 5% of the top SKUs in terms of performance when tuned versus tuned. Obviously, the top SKUs will have higher boost frequencies, stock versus stock. But of course, I'm going to do the tuning on them. I'm going to tune the RAM and let you guys know what sort of experience we can get out of tuning DDR5. So that's going to be something that we're going to be doing as well. And then another video that I'm thinking about doing, or a video series, is I'm actually building myself a gaming PC for my living room. It's a small little machine, and I'm thinking about calling it the good old game box, because to me, that's all it is. It's a little game box that I'm building, and that uses micro ATX. That's why I tend to like micro ATX, because you can get the Rosewell FBM-400, I think it is, case. It's a very, very small and compact case. Allows for two 120 millimeters in the front, two 120 millimeters at the top for exhaust, and one 120 millimeter in the back. They usually go on sale for about $40. So I really, really, really like this case. It doesn't have any windows and side panels or any of that. It's a very small, unassuming case, but it's basically the smallest possible form factor to cram all these parts in. It does allow for reasonable sized GPUs as well. You can put in real ATX power supplies, so you don't have to pay a premium for SFX. So for me, I very, very much like that case, and the parts that fit inside of it, you can put just about anything because it does have enough cooling. So for me personally, my personal gaming machine is actually going to be using the i3-12100 because it's an amazing value. And I actually picked up a B660 Steel Legend motherboard for $110. They actually have the Riptide RS, basically the same sort of thing that I'm getting in Z690, but the B660 version, those are selling for $99. So that means, you know, $200, less than $200 for both CPU and motherboard. And then obviously we'll be using Patriot Viper, you know, Samsung B-Die and all that sort of stuff. And personally for me, that is really all I need. And I think for a lot of people out there, it would make for a really good little just game box. And I'm thinking about making that kind of a series. As new games come out, we'll use that machine, which is super budget friendly. GPU, I'm using the RX 6600. Right now, that's performance per dollar champion out there. If you want to get one of those, they're $200 to $250. I forgot to mention that. But yeah, so my thought process is we take this machine, this cheap budget machine that I'm personally going to use every night, as I have to stay up late because of our new son. He gets up every couple hours. He needs to be fed. So I'm on the couch playing video games while he's sleeping. So I'm getting a lot more game time in. And I've been doing this actually for a little while, but I want to get your feedback if you think that's a good way to go. And then as time goes on, as new games come out and I get new stuff, we can test out this super budget machine, this tiny little box, and just see how it does with the latest and greatest games as they come out. And then when it's no longer good enough, we can be like, okay, this is no longer cutting the mustard. It's time to upgrade the game box. I want to get your guys' thoughts on that, if that should be kind of a running theme with the channel. I'm thinking maybe do one every year using the bang for buck champion parts from whatever company there is. Like this would be the 2022 edition, good old game box. We'll do a 2023, and then we can kind of keep going forward with that. So that's a cool idea that I was thinking of, and I want to get your guys' feedback on that. And then another video series, because right now I'm only doing the one video per week, which that'll continue for a little bit as, once again, we're trying to get everything settled in. We just painted our old room. My wife and I have switched our rooms, so we've been super busy. My son had COVID last week. That was really annoying. And yeah, so we've been really, really busy trying to get into a groove, but that should be happening here soon. And I really want to get back to doing 2 videos per week. The second video I'm thinking about doing is actually starting to highlight games that I'm playing. So I typically play older games that many of you guys probably never heard of, especially if you're younger. You probably don't even know these games exist. And instead of waiting for the next big thing to come out, which seems to never actually materialize, you can just go back and spend 5, 10, 20 bucks on some older games that are fantastic. So what I'm thinking about doing, instead of just going, hey, this game's great, go play it, obviously that'll be part of it. I'll explain to you why I like the particular game. But what I think would be different with my sort of game reviews is I'll actually test different aspects of it. Number one, does it support high refresh rate? So we'll test like 240 hertz. Is that possible? Because a lot of older games, that's not a thing. They have like frame rate caps, or it breaks stuff in the game. Are there workarounds for it? Things like that. Can the game box, the cheap little PC that I have, since it's an older game, can it run it at 4K? If it can run it at 4K, can it run 4K 60? Can it do 4K 120? And yes, the answer to that is yes, some games will run 4K 120 on the game box. I can already confirm that. But that's a really cool thing to highlight. Be like, well, if you're playing these games, and even if you have an OLED, you don't need to spend a ton of money because they just work. And then the other one that I'm thinking about adding in is, does it support ultra widescreen? I'm thinking about picking up that Alienware OLED for me personally, because I just think that'd be the best gaming monitor that there is right now. And widescreen or ultra widescreen support, especially on older titles, is a bit spotty. Now, with a little bit of work, you can probably make that happen. So I'm thinking in that sort of review video, I'll let you guys know if it works, and if you need to do tweaks or whatever, show you guys how to do that. And then I will also test on Linux as well and see if the games run on Linux. So instead of it just being like, hey, this game is great, blah, 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 and talk about the game the whole time, it'll be talk about the game briefly, and I'll give you guys my opinions on it. Then I'll go ahead and show you guys how it performs in various different configurations, what sort of hiccups you might run into, because a lot of these older games, you will run into issues. Maybe it's got a 30 FPS cap. How do you override that? How high can you go? Does it break the game? Stuff like that. So those will actually be pretty in-depth. I'm thinking doing one of those a week, and then complementing that content with kind of the traditional testing videos that I'll be doing. So obviously, once AM5 comes out, there's going to be some testing that needs to be done. When the new GPUs come out, there's going to need to be some testing to be done, but there's not something that needs to be done like every week. So the game review thing, I think, will be the guaranteed weekly video, and then I'll get the testing content out when possible. So that's my thought process on moving forward to make sure that I'm not running out of stuff to talk about. And realistically, I have no interest in just beating the drum on leaks and rumors or any of that stuff anymore. Paul and I talk about that sort of stuff on the Techonomics podcast. If you haven't subscribed to that, links are down below. So we do that twice a week. So I'm already doing 2 videos a week talking about that stuff. I don't need to do another video on that. So instead, I'd rather highlight older games that I'm personally playing, explain to you guys why I like playing them and what I do to make sure that they run properly, and the performance levels that I'm seeing with very affordable hardware. And that could be supplemented with new game releases. We could test that on the budget game box, the good old game box, and see how that goes, and if and when those parts no longer cutting the mustard, then we know that, hey, we need to upgrade and see what other options are out there. So I think that that'd be pretty good supplementary content to that. And then, of course, going ahead, testing DDR5, we'll check that stuff out, do DDR5 tuning, how big of a difference does that make, how much room does it have compared to something like B-Die. Obviously, that content I can do, like the 12600K, we can do DDR4 versus DDR5, stock versus max tuned. So we could start off with that stuff. Then, of course, we'll add in AM5 with Zen 4. And then with Raptor Lake coming out later this year, we'll add that in as well. And then on the GPU side, I think we're going to hold back for a little bit. Maybe I'll pick up some old flagships. Maybe like if a 3080 Ti hits around $400, maybe I'll snag one of those. But in reality, I'm going to be waiting for the 4060 Ti level GPU, basically the $400 GPUs to come out, and I don't expect those to launch this year. I figure those will be early next year. So I don't think I'm going to be too interested in GPU content until those come out, as that's really the bang for buck king. Every generation is about the $400 graphics card. So I think it's going to be worth waiting on that one for most people out there, unless you're running like 4K 120 on modern AAA titles or 4K 240. Those guys, you probably just want to get a 4090 or a 7900 XT and just call it a day, because you need all the performance you can get. But for everybody else out there that's not running the latest AAA games at some stupid resolution, you could probably wait for those to bring down value, unless, like I said, the secondhand market gets good. I don't think I'm going to be picking up any other graphics cards right now. The RX 6600, like I said, between the $200, $250 mark is hands down the performance per dollar champ right now. If that changes, maybe NVIDIA launches, a 3060s at $250, we can revisit that comparison, or maybe they drop the price of the 3050 to like $180. That might be competitive, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens on the GPU side of things. But alrighty, guys, so that's a lot of information. That's all the stuff that's going on in my brain pan. I want to get your guys' feedback on all of this, what you guys think of this type of content idea. It's a little bit more varied than what I'm currently doing, and it's focusing more on the games, because in reality, I just sat down the other day and played Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine that just came out on GOG, which, by the way, I got an affiliate link down below. You should definitely check that game out. And it also helps support the channel if you use the link. But it's an amazing game. I'm like, man, this game runs 4K 120 on a $200 graphics card, and I had a blast with it. It's just a lot of fun. And I think it was like on sale for like $10 or something. So it's like $10 game, great experience. I'm like, I think that it'd be nice to more highlight that sort of stuff, especially in today's market where you may not have the funds to go out and buy new hardware to run the latest AAA games with the 4Ks and the ray tracings and all of that. Okay, so instead of doing that, especially if you haven't played any of these older games, why not go that route? They run on just about anything nowadays. So I think that's a good way to go, but I want to hear your thoughts on all this sort of stuff. And then in terms of the testing, I really need to know, do you think X670, just do it, get it out as early as possible because you guys want to know? I know that's going to be the case, but do you think it makes more sense to wait for B650? Because I don't want to buy an X670 board at $199 and go, well, when you add $300 for a CPU plus $200 for the GPU plus $300 or $400 for RAM, I 100% can't recommend this thing. I mean, I can already tell you that's probably going to be the case unless AMD comes out with a CPU that's like twice as fast as Zen 3. Now, if they manage that, that's a whole nother ball game. I'll be like, nah, this thing's totally worth it because it's so much faster than everything else. Not saying that that's going to happen, but it's not impossible either. So in reality, I think that it would make sense to wait until the prices of the parts get cheaper. Like if I can get a board for $130 and then hopefully the 50 or 7600X, AMD smart enough to bring that out at $250, then maybe that $160 RAM that I'm getting works, then we're talking about something that might be far more affordable and competitive on price. So I don't know, guys. I want to hear your thoughts on all this stuff. Like I said, this whole video is me just kind of giving you the ideas that are going on in my head and kind of throw it at you and see what your guys' reaction is, what you guys think about all of this. I might do a couple of polls, so if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. Hit the little notification bell and keep your eye out on your subscription feed for the polls and stuff, because I take all that stuff to heart. When I say, all right, I need information from you guys, because I do this for not just myself. I like to know all this information and do all the testing myself, of course, so this way I can speak from a place of knowledge. I've actually tested it, but I also like to do what you guys find to be the most interesting as well. So if you guys can go ahead and make sure that you vote on all those things, that really helps out. And if you want to go ahead and join the conversation, you can chat with me directly about all these ideas. You can do so by hitting the little join button down below, or the Patreon link down in the video description. It gets you access to Discord, and you can go, hey Chris, this is what I think about all these ideas, and I can interact with you directly there. Well, alrighty guys, thank you so much for all your support. Thank you so much for all of your comments. I know you guys are typing up away and giving me your thoughts. Thank you so much for all of that. And yeah, that's really all I have for you guys here today. And I will catch you guys in the next video.